Okay, so it's time for us to go ahead and get back into our coverage over, well, X-Man. And we do pick up with issue number 25. Now, here's the thing about this issue right here, because this is Jean Grey versus Madelyn Pryor, but like round two, but also involving Nate Gray as well, because in our earlier videos, we had discussed the idea that Madelyn Pryor now knows about her past, like the whole idea of Jean Grey, Mr. Sinister, Scott Summers, but also being a clone of Jean Grey. Oh, and let's not forget the idea that she had a child with Cyclops, better known as Cable. And so at the end of our last video for Nate Gray, after he had left the cemetery, after he left Trinity behind, his current lover, well, she was confronted by Madelyn Pryor. Now, this is also like the first time Trinity and Madelyn Pryor are meeting one another. So, of course, when they do be confronted by each other, for Trinity, she does know about Madelyn Pryor. And the reason why, because she used to work for Mr. Sinister. And while kind of looking into his database, she was able to learn almost everything about Madelyn Pryor because that man created her. But for Madelyn, this is her first time meeting Trinity. Now, for Trinity, she does leave because her main goal is to find Nate Gray. The problem is that while she's trying to walk away, that is when you have Madelyn ask, oh, wait, Nate was here. Now we have to get Jean Grey involved in the storyline. Now for Jean Grey, she's currently at home with Cyclops. And the thing is, she's confronted by Sanctity. Now, her real name is Tanya Trask, and she is the daughter to Bolivar Trask, the man who created the Sentinels. Now here's the thing, because for Tanya, she's a mutant. The thing is, she has the ability to time travel. So she fell into the far future where she met the Ascani clan, of course, a clan that helped raise Cable. But when it came to Tanya, while being there with Mother Ascani, better known as Rachel Summers, she was able to work her way up in the ranking of the actual clan. The thing is, she knows Cyclops and Jean Grey from a different storyline that we have not covered yet. But it's her saying like, hey, listen, you gotta wake up because one, you got Nate Gray out there. And when it comes to the Ascani clan, they kind of feel like Nate Gray should go. And the reason why, because he's an error in his timeline. He's a copy of Cable, technically, from a different timeline, who should not even be here. But it's also her kind of warning Jean Grey about Madelyn Pryor. Now, I kind of want to shift over to Nate Gray, X-Men, and here's the reason why. Because for Nate Gray, let's not forget that technically he has two lovers in this reality. There's one more in a different reality. But the two lovers he had in this reality is Madelyn Pryor and also Trinity. Now, for Madelyn, she was the first one he met when he first arrived in this reality. But back then, for Madelyn, she had no idea about her past. So unfortunately, she could not tell Nate Gray much about her. Now, the second lover is, of course, Trinity. And for her, she used to work for Mr. Sinister until she was able to break away from him and get with Nate Gray. The problem is that Nate Gray feels like that in some kind of weird way, she might be working for Mr. Sinister. But on top of that, he hates the idea that sometimes for Trinity, she has this hunger to kill people because when it comes to her powers, she can absorb the energy of people who are dying and turn that energy into a blast. And the thing is, she has that hunger to absorb that type of energy. And so for Nate, is him kind of wondering like, okay, what should he do with his love life? But let's go ahead and shift back over to the ladies. Now, when it comes to Trinity, like I said earlier, she knows almost everything about Madelyn Pryor. The whole idea of her past, how she was created by Mr. Sinister. And so she tells Madelyn like, hey, listen, I know everything about you. Now, when it comes to Trinity, remember that she can sense the death energy of people who are currently dying or possibly dead. And so when it comes to Madelyn, she's like, oh, you are not alive. You are dead. That can't be right. But as soon as she says that, that right there freaks out Madelyn Pryor. Because for Madelyn Pryor, to hear the idea that, oh, I'm dead, is not right to her. She can breathe, she can think, she can feel, she can see. And technically, those things right there means that, yeah, she's alive. She's not dead. And so for Madelyn, she begins to freak out and call Trinity a freak because in her mindset, look what you're wearing right now on your head. Those devices that was given to you by Mr. Sinister. Because remember, for a Trinity, she can't control her powers. She needs those devices to help her control her powers. Because if she doesn't, she'll just absorb random death energy out of nowhere and not be able to contain it and then release as a blast that could possibly hurt other people down the road. Now, once you have Madelyn take her out and you have Madelyn leave, you have two other guys kind of feel her presence. The first one would be Cable, her actual son. The other one, that would be Havoc, her lover right after Scott Summers. Now, after Madelyn kind of flies away from Trinity, for Madelyn, it's just her now being flooded with different things that she had forgotten from her past. The whole idea of being a clone from Jean Grey, being birthed by Mr. Sinister, meeting Scott Summers, getting married to Scott Summers, having a child with Scott, but then losing her husband and losing her child to Jean Grey, and then she died. It's all coming to her all at once. It's just too much for her to possibly handle all at once. And so she does pass out. But once she does wake back up, she's then confronted by Nate Gray. Now, this is the first time these two characters have seen each other since like the early days of this series, because right after you had Nate Gray arrive in this reality, he met her, but then she disappeared because Selene took her away. And for Nate Gray, he had no idea where she was at. But with these two being able to reunite with one another and being able to kiss, it does seem like at first, like, okay, they might get the chance to have some time with one another. But then Jean Grey arrives on the Blackbird. Now, for Nate Gray, he does not really know about the past of Madelyn Pryor. So the whole idea of seeing Madelyn being able to bring down the Blackbird, he's kind of wondering like, why is Madelyn attacking an X-Men for, especially someone like Jean Grey, who for me personally seems like a nice person? This is kind of weird. Now, at the same time, for Nate Gray, he's also kind of like, against the X-Men, because for him, with him coming from the age of apocalypse reality and seeing the dark side of what happens when a mutant takes over the world, the whole idea of the X-Men fighting for the dream of Charles Xavier, where mutants and humans are able to live together in harmony, seems kind of like a reach to him. And so for Nate Gray, he also kind of hates the X-Men because of what happened when it came to the Onslaught crossover. Now, it's not really him saying like, I don't like you guys at all, but for him, he wants to be left alone, especially comes to him and his friends like Trinity and also Madelyn Pryor. But it's also Jean Grey being like, you don't understand though. Now, for Madelyn Pryor, as we all know, she hates Jean Grey for what she has technically done to her. To her mindset, oh, Jean Grey, here you came back into my life. You took my husband away. You took my son away. Like, it's truly not fair. Now, she does not say it out loud, but for Nate Gray, the dude wants some answers. He's like, listen, I just watched you go 0 to 100 real quick on Jean Grey, and I have no idea why. But once you have Nate Gray begin to question Madelyn, that ticks her off because she feels like the whole idea of Nate Gray questioning her is kind of like him not trusting her. It's kind of like he's now on the side of the X-Men. And so with her getting upset, we're seeing that her powers are beginning to go a tad bit, wild again. Now you have Nate Gray try his best to shield them all from her abilities at the moment. But you have Jean Grey remind us that for Nate Gray, that his powers are technically killing him. You see, when it came to Mr. Sinister over in the other reality, better known as Age of Apocalypse, he made sure to kind of put that in as a fail-safe because he made Nate Gray to take down Apocalypse. But he had to make sure that if Nate Gray did kill off Apocalypse, that Nate Gray would not come back to kill him. And so he put that fail-safe in, like, hey, listen, your powers are going to kill you very soon the more often you use it. And so for Nate, with him trying to hold Madelyn, but also protect him and Jean Grey as well, it's really doing a number to him at the moment. Now, it's Jean Grey also saying, like, Nate, we have to like go into her mind to figure out what she is, because that's the thing. Madelyn should be dead. She died back in X-Men Inferno. How in the world is she here right now? But at the same time, it will allow Nate Grey to kind of get some answers about Madelyn. And really, when it comes to Nate Grey and also Jean Grey, when they look into the mind of Madelyn, they discover almost everything about her. And this is really huge because for Nate Grey and Jean Grey, they kind of figure out like, okay, how in the world is this woman right now alive again after she had died supposedly back in X-Men Inferno? And we kind of find out Nate Grey created her. You heard that right. Nate Grey is the reason why Madelyn Pryor is here at the moment. Because when it came to Nate Grey, when he arrived in the main Marvel universe, he reached out for Jean Grey. And the reason why, because he wanted a Jean Grey like the one he had back from his reality, the Age of Apocalypse reality. And so unfortunately, when he came over here to the main Marvel universe, reaching out to our Jean Grey, he discovered Madelyn Pryor on accident and technically created her. Like, he psionically created Madelyn Pryor. She's just a shell of a person technically. And the reason why, because he wanted someone like Jean Grey. And unfortunately, he got Madelyn. And so once he had discovered that, to him, Madelyn gotta go. Now for Jean Grey, she does try to stop him, but she can't. And you then have Madelyn get very upset. Because for Madelyn, they're hitting her at her core. Like, you keep calling her a corpse. You keep calling her a dead person. And the thing is, she, in her mindset, to most people, she was never real because she was a clone of Jean Grey. But to her, she is her own person. She has her own heart, her own feelings, her own emotions. Like, everything about her is her own. It's not really Jean Grey. And that's the thing. And so once you have Madelyn realize that Nate is trying to get rid of her, you have Madelyn give Nate his power back right at him, and then she leaves. Now, this has a major outcome here. And the reason why, because right after you have Madelyn leave, Madelyn goes over to Hong Kong to be with Sebastian, because around this time, Marvel Comics, well, she was helping out reforming the Hellfire Club in the American branch. So her, Sebastian, Tessa, you also got Fitzroy and Celine, but she does join Sebastian in his bed. So of course, we get the idea that those two are now becoming lovers. But for Nate Grey, the real biggest outcome of the storyline is that he lost half of his abilities once Madelyn Pryor kind of gave his powers back to him. And so for Nate Grey, he's no longer able to use telekinesis anymore. He still is a telepath, but that's really it. And so now the question is, what's next for Nate Grey without the idea of having half of his powers to use out there in the world? But with that being said, guys, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.